Hi, Kareeb here. You're watching GK. This video took excessively long to make, predominantly because I was waiting for a bunch of other things to happen that ultimately did not end up happening. So because of that, we're just gonna start doing this now. I was originally gonna consider just letting the footage play out and kind of play the story and maybe put a few voice memo notes in there, and I probably will still be doing that. It's just that the footage in total, back to back, is an hour and 38 minutes long. And I know realistically, even for my channel standards, you don't have an hour and 30 minutes long. Or an hour and 40 minutes long of time. So we're just gonna like kind of summarize it, kind of give you a quick little story, because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff that happened here was kind of out of my own stupidity. So for starters, after waiting for an excessively long amount of time, I finally got all the tools and all the things I needed to do what I was waiting to do for a very long time now, and that was to take the Windows PC and replace the hard drive. See, if you saw my previous videos, you'd know that I had replaced the RAM and the GPU. Well, actually added a GPU because there wasn't any. And you'd think that after adding those two parts in, that it would still probably be at least a little bit more faster. I mean, we went from 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM to 16, so, I mean, 12 gigabyte increase, that should mean something, right? Wrong. So it turns out, it just didn't want to go fast. And it was painful. It was slow. It was painful, and I couldn't get things done, and it was just unusable for me. Turns out, the real problem wasn't the RAM. It's not the CPU, and it's definitely not the GPU that I spent almost $200 on. It was, get this, the hard drive. Now, there's one thing you gotta understand about hard drives, and that is that they don't last long. At the most, you're looking at least 10 years worth of, you just playing around with the hard drive and stuff like that. And unfortunately, this computer is most likely at least 10 years old, considering the fact that the CPU that it's using was released in 2014. So what does this mean? Well, that means that your boy has to go on Amazon and get a Samsung SSD. Ah, yes, now time to have South Korea in my my SSD. Gonna have America as my GPU and my CPU, and I don't even know what the hell kind of company I chose for my RAM. Anyway, wait, geopolitics, I don't even know what I was talking about there with the geography stuff. So first off, came in the parts, obviously, and as you can see here, I'm struggling to log in to my own computer because I haven't been using it in such a long time, and I completely forgot the passcode. Eventually, I did remember it, though. Turns out it was not that hard. But after finally figuring out the passcode, it was time to actually get in and do what I was researching about. So I learned from this one Microsoft forum, from this guy who supposedly knew what he was doing, that apparently you could just very easily make a Windows clone and clone it to your SSD via simply using something in the control panel. Basically, you go to the control panel, go to this setting, and then go to that setting, and boom, look at that. You got the ability to copy it. It says Windows 7 on the side of it. Don't know why it says that. Probably just some old feature from Windows 7 that they had to specify. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But eventually, I did exactly just that. And as you'll see later on in this video, this became a huge bite in the ass cheeks, and I mean that. After all of that was said and done, we finally get to the point where it's me trying to get the SSD in. So before we actually clone it, obviously you have to format it. That's exactly what I decided to do here. Of course, finally, after all of that was said and done, and after getting the PC on, the next step was to simply set things up for once. And of course, set things up I did by just unboxing everything and setting up a little bit of an unboxing video.
Look at that beautiful boy. Look at that beautiful boy and his beautiful SSD SATA thingy-mabobber. Look at that. That's so pretty. Look at that. That's so pretty.
We're gonna skip past all this hunky junk anyway. But to put a long story short, we ended up getting everything in. I plugged the SATA connector into the SSD, plugged it into the PC, and now it was time to follow what that random dude on Microsoft forums, who totally knew what he was doing, by the way, and totally knew exactly what I needed to do, and there was totally zero misunderstanding. Yeah, totally zero misunderstanding.
Look at all the dust and grime up here. You can tell this computer hasn't been touched in a minute. I hate it when USBs do that. And I've immediately run into a problem. Oh, crap. This is not long enough. That's what she said. Technically work, and you should be able to hear like a doom, boom, doom sound. Which way does this go in? Does it go in like this? Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So eventually, later on, I noticed that while I was trying to do the control panel thingy, it wasn't reading the disk. It didn't detect anything at all. And it was at this point I started wondering, okay, well, why was that the case? Turns out, when you get a brand new SSD, you need to do something called formatting. Basically, you completely reset the SSD to have, well, maybe not default settings, but to settings that would actually work depending on what computer you're using. So, since I was using something that's called a Windows computer, I had to format it to something called NFTS, or whatever the heck it's called, I don't know. And then, of course, also use a separate program that was also in Control Panel to get access to the drive and create something called a volume. I'm not going to go into this incredibly detailed explanation as to what the heck I'm actually doing here. Just know that I am doing something, and that something is being done. I don't know. But eventually I was able to get it to work, and it was all running all fine and smooth. From there on out, no problems would have happened at all. There were a lot of problems, a lot of really, really bad problems. The problems got they only got worse from there. They really did.
Okay. Put this bag out of the way. Today's the next day, and this boy's finally gonna get his new brain. Or, well, technically the whole computer is the brain. If so, this would be like what? Frontal lobe, back lobe, whatever.
So after following all the steps my good friend Google gave me, now it was time for the moment of truth. We were gonna put it in the SSD. Didn't really put a bracket in yet because I felt like it didn't need to, and we just got to work. And nothing happened. Nothing was shown on screen. The screen went absolutely dark. And then it did show something, but it wasn't a good something. It started giving error screens talking about how it couldn't read the disk. Now, let me be clear. This was around the same time that I had also heard about different disk formats. Thanks to this comment right here that was in my previous video about this PC, it turns out that there are different kinds of storage format thingies. One of them is called MBR, short for main boot read thingy, I think. I don't know. But the point is that was what was set for the hard drive. And after playing with BIOS settings and giving up, I kind of thought to myself, maybe that was what the problem was. Because for all I know, the SSD could have just been set to GPT, and I was correct. The SSD was in fact set to GPT. And considering the fact that this was a potentially 10-year-old PC, I decided to say, you know what, screw it, let's convert it to MBR, then do the process all over again, which, trust me, is not a quick process. It takes at least 20 minutes, maybe longer. And then just pray for the best. It still didn't work. It still didn't detect the disk. And we still had the problems. Next thing you know, I'm spending the next 2 whole days trying to figure out this issue. All because I trusted some random dude off of Microsoft forums. Eventually, I decide to give up, and before I decide to think of anything else, I do some other things. Like, change the volume settings, thingies, bottom to top, just do everything I could to maybe change a few small details here and there. Nothing changed. Everything still remained the exact same. Everything was absolute booty cheeks. And you know what's crazy? All it took was a little bit more digging into how this cloning thing works to realize that there was a dedicated software to do this whole time. After watching a video from this guy right here that you're seeing on screen, I was finally able to come across something revolutionary. What was that revolutionary thing? Well, it was none other than our good old friend Macrium Reflect 9. I think. I don't know. I don't remember anything about these names. I'm quite literally just going off of the top of my head. The video editor is going to have a field day editing this one because I feel like nothing is going to make sense here. So, after having all of that said and done, after trying so hard, spending 2 whole days of my time trying to figure this problem out, it turns out that that Windows 7 feature thingy, my guess, was just to copy the data. It wasn't even to copy the operating system. No, it was just copying all of the directories, the files, all of that stuff. So all of those hours spent tinkering around with the boot utility in the BIOS settings, all those hours spent investigating the hard drive, the motherboard, the SSD itself, that one feature on control panel, just to realize that it didn't back up anything except the files, and that was it. Not the operating system, but the files. You do not understand just how terrible it feels to know that you wasted 2 days of your time because you decided not to dig deeper. I was digging in the wrong hole.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night.
After all of that was said and done, and, all those problems were dealt with, the rest of the process was pretty smooth. It took quite a long time, and I kind of just had to go AFK for a bit, but I didn't really care anyway. Eventually, it actually worked. I felt so relieved, and now that I actually had the new SSD fully finished in terms of the transfer process, now it was time for the next part. And that was putting it on these little bracket thingies. See, for my choice of SSD bracket, I decided to get something called a Corsair bracket. Yeah, basically it was a 3.5-inch hard drive bracket that could be converted into a 2.5-inch SSD bracket. Because SSDs are never 3.5 inches. They're always 2.5 inches, and they'll stay that way till the end of time. But yeah, because they stayed at 2.5 inches the whole time, I had to kind of, just kind of make some modifications. Just get a new bracket for it so it doesn't just jingle around like a cowbell or something. So because of that, at first I didn't really understand what to do. I was able to mount the SSD just fine. It was pretty obvious. Just put it there, put a bunch of screws next to it, you're good. When it came to the actual mounting process, though, that's where things got a little bit confusing. See, the thing was that this is an HP computer. This is a pre-built, small form factor computer. And this is built different from your traditional, custom-built PC with a RTX 4090 and a Ryzen 7 thingy-mabobber. Why do you have to take the GPU from me, bro? It should have been me, not you. In all seriousness, though, the hard drive bracket kind of didn't really fit, and I didn't really understand how to get it to fit. I also lost like 2 screws trying to do it, and I was genuinely pissed because my klutzy dummy ass kind of just didn't really think about that. Yeah, this is a real professional guy here. This is the guy that's going to get into MIT. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. When it came to the thingy, I didn't really know what to do. It was kind of confusing. Until eventually I realized the hard drive kind of slides in thanks to these little screw wheel thingies on the side. So I just thought, hey, why don't I just take that out and put it to the side of that? I mean, after all, a 3.5-inch hard drive thingy, my bobber pop thingy, is kind of just the screws mixed together. Well, not the screws mixed together, but just the hard drive if it was hollowed out and has an SSD inside. So with that in mind, I decided to just put those on there, and surprisingly, it actually fit. Yippee! So now that I have a dying hard drive, and also now have a brand new SSD, how is the computer now with this new SSD installed? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's definitely a lot more faster than what it was before. I'm not surprised that it's as slow as it is. I mean, it still takes definitely a lot more longer to run things than, let's just say my MacBook Air, that's like at least a whole decade ahead of it. If you're comparing a MacBook Air that's from 2020 to a HP desktop that I found in the closet sitting away, rotting away in a school, in my opinion, that's essentially comparing a 2025 Mercedes to a 2009 Toyota Corolla. There's just so many differences to count. But yeah, after going through all that pain, all that struggle, all that suffering, I finally did it. It only took me like a week. And I say a week because I didn't do any work on this thing over the week during the school time thingy. And that's also kind of the reason why I didn't really work on this video as quickly as I did. But hey, I did it, and it actually runs fine now. I can play video games for once, and I can watch YouTube videos, and not have to deal with crappy, slow read times.
Mustard?
Yeah.
Ketchup?
I don't know if it'll still run Team Fortress 2, though.
Look, I'm a dragon, guys. I'm a dragon.
Yeah, so kind of subscribe if you want more stuff like this. I don't know how else I'm gonna do. I want to do more videos where I kind of just take old stuff and make them new again, or make them similar to new, or upgrade them, or something like that. Subscribe if you think I should up my languages. Konnichiwa or something.
Engineer. Yeah, I'm engineer.